Today is a special day. It's a special day for two reasons. The first is that it's the Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year 2023. And the second reason is because today marks the beginning of a new adventure for me. It's the beginning of a series of daily documented videos where I share my thoughts, insights, experiences, inspirations, ideas, all about kabuki theatre and my process towards staging my own independent kabuki-inspired productions. I'm very excited about the prospect of delivering these daily videos and where it's all going to lead. I'm very curious to look back at these in the months and years that pass and just be able to see and trace my developments of thought and just see what emerges. It's a beautiful thing, I think, to be able to see your development and to kind of also be accountable for the thoughts and ideas that you've created as they develop. So in the spirit of Chinese New Year, I have my word that I'm going to share for today in a red envelope, which as custom on Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year, it's often the case that friends and relatives receive a red envelope with a gift inside, cash gift usually. But I have something more valuable than cash. It's this idea of rebirth. Everyone knows their date of birth, but very few people know their date of rebirth. And truly today, I feel reborn. Partially because I love the idea of New Year, and even though I haven't typically celebrated Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year in the past, I feel like today is the perfect day to begin this new journey of documentation. And as I was walking through Kensington Gardens today with this absolutely extraordinary golden light and really fresh, icy, clean air, I was thinking about this idea of a clean slate, a fresh start, a new beginning, renewal, a new cycle. And it got me thinking about the idea of rebirth and how often in kabuki and in Japanese art as a whole, there is constantly this idea of rebirth, spiritual rebirth. And I want to share with you a few examples of what I mean by that. So I'm going to share firstly a passage from the catalogue of Kawanabe Kyozai. This is the catalogue of an exhibition, the Israel Goldman Collection at the Royal Academy in March last year. And I spent quite a few months researching and learning about this Japanese artist, Kyozai, 19th century, because my most recent Kabuki Mono play focused on his life and his work. And he had an extraordinarily fascinating life. His work is incredible, and he's nowhere near as well known as the likes of Hokusai, but absolutely as important and talented. And so on the subject of rebirth, I'm going to share with you this passage. For Kyozai, crows symbolized his success as a painter, and they were a constant reminder of his long journey of practice and learning. In Japan, his fame was established by painting Winter Crow on a withered branch, which won the top prize in the painting section of the Second Domestic Industrial Exposition in Tokyo in 1881. It attracted further popular attention when the wealthy proprietor of the Itano sweet shop in Nihonbashi purchased it for the asking price of 100 yen, some 10 times the normal price. Kyosai claimed that the price was not merely for the crow, but for the many years of hard work that had enabled him to paint it. The paintings at the 1881 exposition were shown in a building designed by the British architect Josiah Conda, who probably first met Kyosai there. He became Kyosai's pupil as well as his patron and friend around the same time. Konda's patronage seemed to have helped Kyosai's crows migrate to Europe. An article in the Yomiuri Shimbun newspaper on the 14th of December 1884 recounts that Kyosai's paintings of crows that Konda took to England became so popular that a commission for 100 more followed. Around this time, the artist made a painting seal containing the phrase "flying over all lands," Bangkoku Hai, suggesting that his crows were indeed flying out across the world and spreading his reputation. This painting bears that seal. The reason I wanted to read this particular passage is, one, I like the idea of this long journey of practice and learning, which is the essence of me deciding to do these daily documentary videos. But the second, in reference to this idea of rebirth, is that Kyosai gave himself a new name, a new art name, Bangkoku Hai, flying over all lands. And he, over his lifetime, reinvented himself and gave himself, I think, 100 different names. For example, in my play, The Picture Book, which was about Kyosai, had a passage in the play where I said, I think Kyosai was a man in love with the idea of reinvention. During his lifetime, he used more than 100 different art names which commented in some way on the painting or the circumstances of its execution. Thus, Kyosai had seals carved with eccentric names such as Gaki, demon of painting, Shuchu Gaki, intoxicated demon of painting. He loved his sake. Gani arazareba zazezu, shu ni arazareba fusazu, never sitting except to paint, never opposing till after wine. But he also had sublime Buddhist names such as Yoku, equal in nothingness, all reflecting the many facets of his personality. So what I find interesting is that he's obviously born and given a name at birth, but then over the course of his career and his life, he constantly changes his name. He changes his art name. He calls himself Gaki, demon of painting, Shuchu Gaki, intoxicated demon of painting. And they're never just random. They're always suggestive of a pivot or a new direction in his artistic sensibility or focus, or if he's achieved a new level of reputation or mastery, it's then an occasion for his new name to be registered. And so I just love that. And this is a pattern that you can see not just in Kyosai, but in Hokusai. He also changed his name over the course of his career. And I wanted to share with you a quote, which is a very well-known quote, but I love it. And it kind of sums this idea of rebirth up. From the age of 6, I had a mania for painting the shapes of things. When I was 50, I had published a universe of designs. But all I have done before the age of 70 is not worth bothering with. At 75, I have learned something of the pattern of nature, of animals, of plants, of birds, fish and insects. When I'm 80, you will see real progress. At 90, I shall have cut my way deeply into the mystery of life itself. At 100, I shall be a marvellous artist. At 110, everything I create, a dot, a line, will jump to life as never before. To all of you who are going to live as long as I do, I promise to keep my word. I am writing this in my old age. I used to call myself Hokusai, but today I sign myself the old man mad about painting. Again, this idea of a metaphorical, artistic, spiritual rebirth. You know your date of birth, but do you know your date of rebirth? So I briefly mentioned Kawanabe Kyosai, the Japanese painter, and his rebirth, and then that quote from Hokusai and how he was also always on the hunt and search for development and rebirth. And I want to finally just very, very briefly talk about this idea of shumei, which is basically translatable into English as a name succession or a name changing ceremony. Because in kabuki theatre, actors throughout their career also go through name changing or a rebirth of sorts. And the kabuki family names, such as the Ichikawa family, which is one of the most revered and long-standing family names in kabuki, going back 12 generations, to the beginning of the 17th century. Many names are associated with certain roles or acting styles, and the possessor of each name must live up to these expectations. And so there is a feeling that almost the actor not only takes on the name, but also embodying the spirit, the style or skill of each actor who previously held that name. And so again, there is this constant theme of development and rebirth. And I just think it's such an aspiring thought for me, in a way, to have this idea in my mind that things aren't stagnant and you aren't the same person you are today that you are tomorrow. It's like, I don't know, constantly shedding skin. I think the process of developing and moving and learning and growing suggests leaving something behind or gaining something new. And I don't know, it just makes me feel so much lighter and energized to think that I will always constantly be, reborn, spiritually, artistically, and that was the word I want to share today. Today marks the very beginning of my journey of sharing my thoughts on kabuki, and I'm very much looking forward to tracing this development and sharing my new thought or word for tomorrow. Until then, good night.